Hello, welcome back to Talking Sense. I'm Ben, as always. It's my dog Biggie. I don't know why, every time I talk to the camera, he just decides that he's not getting enough attention, so he comes and jumps on my shoulders. So we've got Biggie. Anyway, today I'm going to be reviewing a big one, big fragrance. A fragrance that, well, it's big in a lot of ways, I suppose, but it's a fragrance that's been getting a lot of hype in the community, getting like amazing reviews everywhere, all over YouTube, all over everywhere. It's getting amazing reviews, basically. Okay, Chanel Le Lion. So, what is Le Lion? The notes for it are bergamot, lemon, labdanum, amber, patchouli, Madagascar vanilla, musk and sandalwood. And it's a perfume made by Olivier Polg, of course. And I would say from that note listing, the big ones are the labdanum and amber in the middle there. That's the heart of this fragrance. It's what it really is. It's a labdanum and amber kind of showpiece, really. So let's give it a spray and talk about my thoughts. So I've got the dry down on this wrist. I'm going to leave that alone because I want to refer to that in a bit. But let's talk about the opening. So this is a big perfume, as I said, huge. One spray will sort you out. So we give it a quick spray. I made the mistake of doing 2 sprays the first time I sprayed it, put my nose straight in it, and I just almost died. It's really huge. Yeah, really huge perfume. Takes a little time to kind of settle down. When you first spray it, my first thoughts, my very first impressions were, oh yeah, this is Shalimar. And if I was being mean, I would say that they were my overall impressions, that they were also my final impressions. Oh yeah, this is Shalimar, basically. There's more to it than that though. But that's the crux of it, I think. That's the crux of my opinion on it. But there is a bit more to it than that. So, if you've not smelt Shalimar, this opening, yeah, clear lemon, citrus up front. And it's a nice lemon. It's not anywhere near sort of floor cleaner, toilet cleaner sort of lemon here. We're talking like a really clean, crisp, very like glacial lemon. It's sort of shimmers and shiny, and it feels quite icy to me. Like I say, like quite glacial. It's got this kind of like very like Arctic feel to it. I don't know what sort of brings that to my mind, but it has those kind of like cold, clean, crisp elements to it. It's not like super juicy or anything like that. Like I say, it's more sort of crisp and yeah, all the things I just said. And on below that you're straight away getting a bit of patchouli in the base that you can sort of smell. But it's swamped mainly by this kind of amber accord in the middle that's very much tied in with the labdanum accord, which is a very sort of like you know, like I said, the white floral sort of vibe, but it sort of has like leathery, smoky elements to it, and also like kind of ambery elements as well. You also get a little tiny bit of that, and I think this comes from the patchouli, is that you get that tiny kind of hint of sort of sweet chocolate that you get in Coromandel, from the patchouli in Coromandel, and that is in here, I think, but it's very, very fine, very, very, very fine, and say like what that sort of smells like is that kind of slight kind of milky, creamy chocolate kind of thing, or a milky, creamy sweetness. That say it comes from that patchouli, but because of the patchouli being quite dank and quite dark, it does kind of give it a sort of a chocolate sort of vibe to it. Sort of suddenly like thickens up that sweetness. It doesn't let it. The sweetness isn't sugary at all. It's very sort of creamy and slightly milky, and I suppose that's helped along with the vanilla in it. The vanilla in this is not a big vanilla perfume, and I would actually say it's where one of the first sort of divergences of this fragrance away from Shalimar, in that whereas Shalimar has quite a strict vanilla base that sort of gets more and more over time. This doesn't have it so much. It's much less cloyant than Shalimar. It doesn't have that kind of big whomp of a vanilla in the bottom. It's much more of a touch of vanilla. It's a gentler touch, and I would say that actually sums up the whole perfume, and that's how I would. The best way I could describe it is if someone else had smelt Shalimar, I'd say, right, imagine Shalimar, but imagine a slightly more modern minimalist version that is got a touch more refinement, or it feels like it's got a touch more restraint, touch more refinement coming from the fact that it's just a little bit more minimal. It's a little bit stripped back. It doesn't, like the florals in the middle aren't so huge like they are in Shalimar, and the vanilla is very like sort of, like I say, like towed in and put on a leash. And again, it has like the aldehydes in that opening, like very aldehydic opening. But again, they feel measured and sort of honed in. And I feel like all of that leads to basically my ultimate impression of this, which is Shalimar, but slightly more modern, because it disposes of some of those kind of that sort of big, sort of busy floral element of Shalimar, and it just replaces it with as more of a sort of ambery labdanum soliflor almost. It's not a soliflor, but you know what I mean. Like it sort of focuses very heavily on that labdanum, and with that you do get a touch of darkness. This is slightly darker to me than Shalimar, and it also feels a little more masculine. Like whereas I've worn Shalimar for years, and I think it's quite a common one for men to wear, that, you know, it's a perfume sort of marketed towards females and women, but men tend to sort of gravitate to wearing it anyway quite often. This is a more masculine version again than Shalimar. I still think it's dead unisex, but it feels to me slightly more masculine than Shalimar, and that comes from, there's a darkness in this that Shalimar doesn't have, and it's provided by that labdanum, and it's a little bit of smoke and a little touch of something a little sweaty in there. There's something like a little bit dirty and sweaty, and it's very slight, very, very slight. It's almost like on the peripheries of that center there, like it just kind of sort of stroking the edge of those peripheries, just colouring around the edges, but it's there, and it's just kind of adds to that kind of darkness to it, and a little bit of sort of mystery and chic as well. Like there's this kind of, yeah, just something in there that just is a little bit dirty and keeps it a little bit interesting, because contrasting that is actually quite a big soapiness in the middle, which again comes from that labdanum and an amber heart. It does have quite a soapiness in that middle section there. It's not a hugely soapy perfume, but it's there. There's definitely a soapiness to it. It's not on the level of, like, you know, sort of Pradas and things like that, but there's definitely a soapiness to it. And like I say, like that's kind of counteracted by this kind of slight darkness brought on by the patchouli and the kind of, I'm not sure what it is, but that kind of smoky, dirty facet of the labdanum accord. And I have to say, when I first sprayed it, so like my opinions on it, when I first sprayed it, I thought, right, this is Shalimar. I'm disappointed. I wasn't disappointed because I love Shalimar, but I didn't expect it to be so on the nose. Like, it really is very close to Shalimar. And And I was very disappointed. But then over time, these little nuances came out that differentiated it from Shalimar. And every time that it deviates in a good way. Every time it deviates from Shalimar, it feels like I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is like Shalimar, but da 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 da. And that, like, da 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 da, is always something positive. It's always a deviation from Shalimar, but in a way that, and this is going to be sacrilege to a lot of people, improves upon Shalimar. You know, I know that that's probably sacrilege, but that's how I feel. It's like, I suppose when I say improving, it's improving it for my tastes. So, like, for me, I love Shalimar, I do wear it, but I don't necessarily really love that vanillic base, and I don't necessarily really love the kind of aldehydic florals in the middle. I don't really sort of, you know, like those two things are sort of my big bugbears with it, I guess. And this refines that, you know, it drops that vanilla sort of bomb in the base, and it's just a bit more subtle. It sort of refines and reins in the florals in the mids there, and it makes it a bit more about amber. And at the same time, it darkens it, which again plays into my kind of tastes. So for me, when I say it improves upon Shalimar, it improves upon it for my tastes. And so my disappointment, as the kind of as I've kind of got to know it a little better, has definitely faded. And I'm actually at a point now where I think this is gorgeous, and I do get the hype. I do still think it smells a lot like Shalimar, and I think I would be hard pressed to recommend it over Shalimar given the huge gulf in price, because this is £169 I think I paid for 75ml. Now I can buy a bottle of Shalimar for like 30 quid, probably less, and you're getting 95% of what this is offering. I think that extra 5% does stand this apart, but it's how much that extra 130 quid means to you. Do you know what I mean? Like I think if you've got disposable income to spunk, then why not? I think this is a much better version of a similar perfume, if you know what I mean. That, like, both the perfumes are in that wheelhouse, I think. And I think having one makes the other redundant. So if you're going to have just the one, I would say go with Le Lion, because I just think it's more refined, more restrained, and a little bit more controlled, and which just gives it a bit of a classier edge. It also just has that darker undertone to it. I think I really like those elements. So I would say, you know, if you had to buy one and you had disposable income to spunk, then go for Le Lion. But I would say, if you haven't got necessarily 169 quid to spunk on a perfume, but you would like to smell something like it, I'd say don't worry about it. Just get Shalimar, because you're going to get like 95% of this, and what you do get in Shalimar is not bad. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's not as if this is good and Shalimar is sort of like the pauper's version. Like, absolutely not. Like, they're both excellent perfumes in their own right, but they are both so close to one another that I think one makes the other redundant. So, you know, that's my thoughts on that, really. So yeah, who's it for, and all the rest of it? I think it's a slightly maturer fragrance. I think it's for men and women completely. I think this actually treads that such a good line in that unisex, in that it's a bit floral for men. So it is going to make you stand out as a guy. You know, people are going to smell it and think, hello, like, you know, this guy's a bit chic, a bit classy, a bit fashionable, because it's not your standard masculine fare, right? But it is dark enough to be pulled off by just about any man. So, you know, if you are like, you don't have to worry about, you know, whereas some men might sort of shy away from wearing Shalimar, I don't think you have to shy away from wearing this. I think it's masculine enough to carry that. At the same time, I think it works the opposite way for a woman to wear it, because it's still very sort of delicate and refined, and it's got the florals and stuff like that. And it's got the sweetness from the vanilla, but it has that dark undertone. And I think that makes it really interesting. So I think it actually becomes very chic. By being this kind of interesting unisex and walking this line really well, it becomes really quite, like I say, like really quite chic for male and female. So I think it's largely genderless. I think it's, you know, walks that unisex line so well. For slightly maturer age groups, you know, but then who gives a fuck, right? If you're like 16 and you want to wear this, knock yourself out. You'll be absolutely classy. You'll be killing people. But like, you know, I would have thought probably more mature people are going to be interested in this. Maybe not, you know, it's like I say, anyone can wear whatever they want, can't they really? Do I think you should buy it? As I said before, if you've got the money to spunk, why not, right? But if you haven't, then it does become quite a difficult prospect, because Shalimar is almost the same thing. But if push come to shove and I have to pick one, I'd pick this. And I suppose that's my answer. So I'll leave that there. Chanel Le Lion, loads of hype. And I think I can see why. Why? Yeah, I can see why. Really good perfume. Yeah, excellent. So thanks very much for watching. If you're interested, I've just started a podcast with two other perfume people. Dan from Instagram, his Instagram is Fragrance Weirdo, and a guy called James, whose Instagram is Houdini Scent of the Day. If you may have seen him around on other live streams and stuff. I think Dan's been on a couple of quite fancy live streams, and me and James sort of have been on Eugene's live streams a bit, so you might have seen him around. But we started a podcast where we do sort of long form discussion on perfume and different sort of topics around perfume. I think it's you know, well, it's not really like highbrow, but you know what I mean. Like we're kind of, it's not top 10 panty droppers. Do you know what I mean? Like we're sort of picking a subject and then we're picking it apart and having a proper discussion about it. So if you fancy listening to that, it's called Les Odorants, Lesoderants, and it's available on like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, pretty much anywhere you might listen to a podcast. And it does have a YouTube channel as well if you want to catch it on YouTube. But I mean, we are kind of pushing people, or trying to push people towards that podcast thing, because that's our medium really. You know, it's long form discussion of like, you know, an hour long topic. So we're trying to kind of push people towards the podcast more. But listen to it where you want us to, if you do fancy listening to it. And if you don't worry about it. Thanks very much for watching my review of Le Lion. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. So, I guess you've probably tried this, because a lot of people have. If you have or you haven't, stick it in the comments and let me know what you think. Let me know if you think I'm well off the mark talking about Shalimar a lot. And yeah, let me know your thoughts. Cheers.